Hello, today we're going to do Module 5, Lesson 6. Our objective is that we're going to build a non-unit fractions less than one whole from unit fractions. Basically, we're going to take one part, we're going to copy it to make a new fraction. That's all that means. Before we start, I want to show you something. I want to show you something that we can do with fractions. Okay, now, way back when, remember when we did this? What was this? This is a number bond, right? Okay, so if I put 5 here, then these two have to add up to 5. So if I put a 2 here, what would this be? 2 plus what equals 5? 3, right? Okay, well we can do the same thing with fractions. So here's my number bond. Now I'm going to give you some fractions, and let's figure out what goes in my total, my big bubble of the number bond, or the total spot. Okay, so if I give you 2/5 and 3/5, we have to put the whole up here. So if I had 2/5 and I add 3/5 to it, how much would I have? I would have 5/5. Well, let's draw a real quick picture of that. Goodness, I probably could have picked an easier fraction than fifths to draw a picture of, but I'm going to do my best. I'm going to use these bars. Okay. 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I need to break this into fifths, so about the same size. 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, now this one, we had 2/5. And this one we had 3/5. Now, looking at this, I can put this bar right on top of this bar, and I would fill it right up exactly, wouldn't I? Because this one needs 3 more to be filled up, and this one needs 2 more to be filled up. So if I move these 3 over, and put them 1, 2, and 3, then I have one whole all filled up. I would have 5/5, wouldn't I? Okay, I want to do one more. Here's our number bond. Okay, now this time I'm going to give you, let's see, how about 7/10 and 3/10? How many tenths would I have up here? Well, if I have 7/10 and I have 3/10 added to it, 7 plus 3 is 10, and the fractional unit that we're dividing the piece up into is in 10 pieces. So we would have 10/10, wouldn't we? Okay, we don't add the 10 plus the 10, do we? Because that just means that's how many parts that the bar is cut into. Okay? All right. Now, moving on to our lesson. Let's do our application problem. Now, thank goodness we're talking about gardens, because it just doesn't quite feel like spring even though we're into March. Here we go. Chloe's dad partitions his garden into 4 equal size sections to plant tomatoes, squash, peppers, and cucumbers. What fraction of the garden is available for growing tomatoes? Well, I'm going to start by drawing a picture. So let's say he's got a rectangle garden, just because that's a simple shape for this kind of thing. And he partitions it into 4 equal-sized sections. Okay, so if I cut it in half, I have 2 equal-sized sections. I cut my halves in half. I get 1, 2, 3, 4 equal sections. So what fraction of the garden is available for growing tomatoes? Well, 1 would be for tomatoes, 1 would be for squash, 1 would be for peppers, and 1 would be for cucumbers. Now, looking at this, how many parts do we have? We have 4 parts. And how many parts are filled up with tomatoes? Just this one right here, right? So 1. So the answer is there is 1/4, spell it correctly, of the garden available. If you don't know how to spell available, I bet you can see it up above. It's 1/4 of the garden available for growing tomatoes. Now, you want a challenge? Because once you get kids involved, everything changes. So let's get Chloe involved. Chloe says, Dad, I like beans and I like lettuce. Can we grow beans and lettuce too? Well, Dad says, sure, but it all has to be equal. I'm an equal kind of guy. Everything has to be equal. We need a spot for lettuce, because Chloe talked her dad into it, and beans. Well, let's start with our picture. Got our rectangle. Now, how many are we going to need? Not 4 equal sections, because we have tomatoes is 1, squash is 2, peppers 3, 4, 5, 6. We need 6 equal sections now. Okay, so if I divide it into thirds, and I cut my thirds in half, then I have 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, because 3 times 2 is 6. Okay, or I could have drawn it this way too, couldn't I? Here's my thirds, and cut my thirds in half. I could have done it that way too, right? I guess it would be up to her dad for his preference, but I'm going to stick with that one, just for simplicity for today. But either picture would be correct, and would give us the correct answer. Okay, so now let's label. This is tomatoes, this is squash, this is peppers, this is cucumbers, this is lettuce, and these are the beans. So, what is the fraction of the garden now that is available for growing tomatoes? Well, how many parts did we break it up into? Broke it into 6s, and how many parts get to be tomatoes? Just 1. So there is 1/6. 1/6 of the garden available. Spell it correctly because it's right above. There is 1/6 of the garden available for growing tomatoes. Goodness, I can't wait to start planting tomatoes too. All right, now let's move on. Okay, this is our lesson section. Maybe if it'll go to the next page. Let's see. There it is. Wonderful. A blank screen. Happy to see it. Okay. Now, here is a unit form. And here is not a blank. Oh, goodness. Okay, so we have to get our... Come on, computer. Oh, it thinks I'm drawing. I'm putting blue dots everywhere. All right. Okay. We've already done that. All right. Oh. Okay, let's do this one. There we go. Back to rocking and rolling. Goodness gracious. This computer today is very cold and is not very happy. Okay, so here's my unit form. This is my unit form. Okay? So, what does the 2 mean? The 2 means that my circle is cut into 2 parts, right? 1, 2. What does the 1 mean? It means that only one part of these 2 is shaded, right? So only one part is shaded. Okay, now, I'm going to draw a picture here. I'm going to draw thirds. and I'm going to draw 1/3. So I'm going to color in one part. Okay? Now, I am going to copy. Now, let's talk about this real quick. We write it this way because there are 3 pieces. It's cut or partitioned into 3 pieces, and there is one colored in. Okay. Now, I'm going to copy it. I'm going to copy this piece over here, which means I'm going to color it in. Now that I copied it, it's going to be exact. It's going to be equal, right? But now I no longer have 1/3. How many do I have? Now I have 2/3. Now let's talk about this for a second. There's 3 parts that my circle is divided into, and now I have 2 pieces colored in, correct? Okay, moving on. Now, I have this shape. Okay, cut it into this. I'm going to cut it into this. Then I'm going to cut it into this. This makes me think of Great Britain's flag. Okay, now I'm going to color in one piece. What is my fraction? Well, first of all, how many parts is it divided up into? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we put it here. How many are colored in? 1. So this model shows 1/8. All right. Well, that's all fantastic, but let's say, I'm going to draw an arrow. Let's say I do some copying, and I'm going to copy it over here, and I'm going to copy that same shape over here, and then I'm going to copy this shape over here, and I'm going to copy this shape over here, and I'm going to copy the shape over here. Now what is my fraction? Well, it's still divided into 8ths, but how many are colored in? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this is a model now of 6/8. Okay? One more time. One more time. And then I'm going to set you to do your homework. Here's a bar, and it's divided into parts. It's partitioned. What is it divided into? 1, 2, 3, 4. So we would write 4 parts here, which would be 4ths. Okay? One of these is colored in. All right? So now, what is my fraction? 1/4. Okay, now I'm going to do some copying again. This time, I'm going to copy it over here, and I'm going to copy it over here. Now what's my fraction? It's still divided into 4 pieces, but now I have 1, 2, 3 copied. Whoops. So now my fraction is 3/4. Okay? So I took my unit fraction, which would be 1/4, and I built a non-unit fraction. Do you see what this right here is considered a non-unit fraction? 1/4 is a unit fraction. Okay? So what would another unit fraction be? Another unit fraction would be like 1/2 or 1/6. And if I add extra pieces to it, then it becomes a non-unit fraction. That's all we did. And by copying, we were able to build one of these, right? Okay, now off you go with your homework. Good luck, and I'll see you soon.